First of all, before I start on, I must begin with everyone is entitled to their own opinion and perspective, and what I say is not an attack on the people who don't like this film, but simply I'm stating my own opinion and view, which I am allowed to have as well, dear viewer. Now thank you for watching, and join me as we unmask the Dark Knight himself. First, the tone in this movie, from the first shot to the last, is the definition of what a Batman film should be. Somehow, Matt Reeves, the director, was able to mix the grounded realism of the Nolan films and the comic book atmosphere of the Burton films, creating a dark and industrial, grounded Gotham that feels lived in and on its last leg, a city filled with decay and gutter rats, darkness and shroud, the perfect place for a bat to thrive. People have always described Gotham of having a soul of its own, and I think Matt Reeves understood this, creating an atmosphere that mirrors its main protagonist perfectly. You have an inside view of a cruel, spliced society in decline, where people are more concerned with themselves, having indulged in manifested greed instead of helping each other in the world. A world where the rich and the woke exploit the masses for their own gain, where regular people are continuously forgotten and treaded on to support an uncaring rising system designed to keep the hierarchy quota. It's great to see a film tackle such subjects like this in a mature, meaningful way, instead of shitting out meaningless crap that the industry sees as woke, further shoving their ideas down your throat and expecting you to clap and cheer like mindless zombies at the pretty lights and shitty jokes. From the opening lines and shots, you immediately are thrown into the Batman's mind. You see the streets how he sees them. As the film progresses, you only go deeper into Bruce's psyche and mindset, really putting you into his shoes. And who doesn't want to be the Caped Crusader? From a perspective of cinematography, this movie is damn near perfect, giving us dark, intrusive, creative shots all through the film, showing us the dirty, grimy, wet streets of Gotham to the bleak, smoggy outlooks of the city from abandoned construction sites left to rot like the rest of the city. Close-up shots of the Batman and the Riddler viewing a whole line of emotions in just a matter of seconds, from the Batman's blacked-out eyes as he looks for clues following a trail humbly set on him, to the Riddler's manic, psychotic live streams. This film is one of the most creative and original pieces of work I've ever seen, and that's exactly why. It took work to make this film as perfect as it was, held by a director who has genuine passion and respect for the subject he's working with, by a main actor who cares about the role he's playing, unburdened by past interpretations and PC views, and simply giving the best performance he can. And it damn well shows and pays off through the film. This is the detective Batman we always deserved. Batman is literally called the greatest detective, and somehow this aspect has really been lost in previous years. Watching him decode and be tested by the Riddler through the film was a joy to watch, and really made you feel like there was a mystery to be solved. You've got a crazed serial killer orchestrating a series of violent murders, but there's an underlying purpose to these killings, a message, a motivation we don't fully understand yet about human nature, greed, corruption, and cruelty to those we don't view as important. As you watch an early Year 2 Batman tasked with hunting down this crazed killer while simultaneously unraveling secrets within his own life and questions the motives of the killer and whether the world he's trying to protect can or even should be saved. Now, I will be spoiling a lot about this film now, so if you haven't seen The Batman yet, stop this video, go watch it, and then come back. I'm also not going to explain every single part of the film either, because that's not what I'm here to do. Rather, I want to focus on the major aspects of the film that transpire. The Batman follows a younger Bruce Wayne, roughly 2 years into his run as Batman. This Bruce Wayne is still new to being the Caped Crusader. Right now, he's more like an angry vigilante beating the absolute piss out of anyone he comes into contact with, which is great. He's still shrouded and formed by the death of his parents, and has yet to come to terms with who he is. Bruce spends his nights fighting thugs and dealers and finding any crime he can, until a mysterious set of murders start popping up with letters to the Batman. Bruce gets tangled into the slums of Gotham's crime organizations in his attempt to find the man who calls himself the Riddler. However, he finds more than he thought, with Catwoman and Commissioner Gordon becoming allies in his quest for vengeance. We're introduced to many characters of Gotham: the Penguin, Falcone, the corrupt police and politicians. We see the crime life unfold around Catwoman and the Batman. As the Riddler's games get more sadistic and he hurts more people, the Batman is forced to take desperate actions, and these actions lead to the few people he cares about getting hurt. The Riddler actually outsmarts the Batman, even though being behind bars. This shortcoming of Bruce plunges the city into utter chaos, where its own people have now risen up for its destruction. But Batman won't stop. He's realized he's fighting for something more than just his parents' death and revenge, but fighting for what he cares about, and that's this city, literally leading the people lost in the dark out of the flooded gates of Gotham with a torch of light, leaving us with a changed Batman who has grown to realize he has to be more than revenge, but something people can hope for. The role of the Dark Knight is a challenge for any actor to play, even more so now that there have been multiple versions to live up to. But in recent years, I found myself going back and rewatching the versions that came before. Everyone talks about the Dark Knight like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But actually taking a step back and looking at the film for what it is, you realize that without Heath Ledger and Joker, the film is pretty boring and gray, honestly. Whereas the Batman is all around fantastic. Every character has depth and worth to the story. It doesn't completely fall apart when you take one character out. Zoe Kravitz gives a great performance as Catwoman, and you actually care about her because you see what she has to go through. She has importance to the story and relations with the characters around her. Her decisions impact the events of the film. She isn't just thrown in to check the diversity box. She's a real, genuine young woman trying to make a living with the skills she has, with her own goals and emotions, and her relationship with Batman was almost perfect, exactly how the Cat and the Bat should be around each other. The chemistry between the two is undeniable. Robert Pattinson was a perfect choice for the role. While his career has ranged from some of the most fantastic performances to straight up unwatchable, although to be honest, let's be real, he's 100% the best part of the Twilight series, and damn, the man did all he could with a legit piece of fecal matter as a script. But I would go as far to say as Robert is hands down my favorite live-action Batman. This is a Batman who is tortured and unsure of his abilities. A Batman who's still on the edge of what's right and wrong. A man who is still lost in the darkness clouded by pain and loss. A Batman on a path of vengeance. He's depressed and he doesn't know what to do with himself besides beat the tar out of lowlifes and dropheads in the middle of the night. This is a Bruce Wayne whose parents' passing has completely unraveled his life. Bruce Wayne died with his parents, and now he's only what the sorrow and the night has made him. He is the Batman, and Robert blows it out of the water. From his simple mannerisms and facial acting to his blows and moments of genuine passion, unfiltered by the persona of Batman. I mean, my God, just look at how he walks. I can honestly say this Batman gave me more fear in 4 steps than the entirety of the Nolan and Batfleck films ever did. Pattinson and Kravitz give phenomenal performances in their own rights and building off one another, but they're not the only ones. While no one will ever top the legend that was Heath Ledger, Paul Dano did a fantastic job with an original, organic take on the Batman's most intellectual foe, or so he'd like to think himself. Giving an unhinged, manic, childlike persona mixed with a harrowing voice, and a getup that resembles 60s military special ops and something out of a horror movie. I genuinely found myself creeped out by this guy, but the film does such a good job showing you different perspectives and immersing you that you can almost understand the guy. It was nice to finally have a foe that actually tested the Batman and matched his level of intellect, making him feel like he was the one who's being hunted. The Riddler's presence can go from being calm and whimsical to spazzed anger in a matter of seconds. The best part about the Riddler in this film is how in the end you start to really question what he's doing, and it's reflected wonderfully in Bruce himself. He never actually says it, but you can tell he's struggling with his own sense of morality and righteousness. If what the Riddler's doing might not actually be so bad, and is it any different from what he's trying to accomplish? These are all great questions the film slowly starts to unravel as it plays out. You as the viewer are thinking about the same things the character is, which is exactly the thing a good film will do, and inspire your own thoughts of perception and the characters of the world around you. Colin Farrell gave us a different take on an iconic character in The Penguin. Not only was his persona and look new and inventive, it fit perfectly in the crime-driven city and tone of the film. Penguin in the past being a slapstick, almost comically bad villain, this Penguin is an actual believable person who gives a sense of his own motivations and plans to rise higher in the orchestrated crime families. He's never fully given the center screen for very long, even though being one of the Batman's most famous foes, and it works great because he doesn't need to be the main focus. Every villain doesn't need to steal the show. He adds to the world feeling alive and lived in, as there's history to this character that we don't know, but we want to find out. Also, my favorite shot in the whole film is when the Penguin, hanging upside down in his car, as the Batman walks upside down, flames engulf behind. Sheer beauty, my friends. It really doesn't get much better than that as a Batman fan. And the same goes for Falcone in this film. He isn't just some face we're told is important and then forgotten about. We actually see why he's important and understand his role as we see him interact with people around him. We get the sense this is a man who knows what he's doing and has been doing it for a long time, only to find out decisions he made long ago are affecting what we see now. This is how you make a world feel alive and lived in, like it has a history before the starting of the events of the film. Andy Serkis as Alfred was another great choice. Everybody knows Andy Serkis for being a fantastic actor, but I don't think anyone expected for him to nail Alfred as much as he did. This is an Alfred who's more one-on-one with Bruce, who's not afraid to stand up to Bruce and tell him like it is, with only subtle hints through the film and very limited screen time interactions. The viewer paints an entire picture of their past together, from the early days of his parents' murder to rigorous training sessions between the two. I really liked the scene where he handed over his cuffs to Bruce. It showed how important the Wayne family was and still is to him, how important Bruce is to him. The hospital scene between the two is a beautifully constructed scene of raw, genuine emotion from both actors, really setting in stone to the viewer that these two are our Alfred and Bruce, and this Batman can hold love in his heart again. Aesthetically, the film is amazing, with the dark orange yellows of Gotham's skyline to the black shadowed streets and alleys. Steam bellowing out the cisterns with glowing blue and red neon signs held up by rusted chains for passerbys to grab a quick coffee. The booming flash light-up nightclub with the pounding bass heard from outside to the white rat-filled subways where fear lies in wait for the lost. The film has a beautiful color gradient to it, with very saturated bright colors and very dark cool shades. Light being an important part of this film, figuratively and literally being a light in the darkness. Matt Reeves has always done colors in his films beautifully, the Planet of the Apes films being some of my favorites. Not only is the atmosphere and tone build to the film, the suit is immaculate, by far my favorite Batman suit to date. 2, just like the world, is grounded and sleek. It makes sense to the person around it, actually looking like it was handmade by Bruce over time, and not by the UNSC Special Forces just spray-painted black. When he takes the cowl off for the first time, it seems like he hasn't seen the world unmasked for weeks or even months, not even be able to remember what day it is or what he did the night before. His mind has been so altered by this new persona he's made that he has truly detached himself from Bruce Wayne at this point, only seeing it as a mandated script to uphold. If it wasn't for Alfred, I honestly believe that this Batman would have completely withdrawn from society and gone even madder than he already is. That's another note about this film, is it really dived into the Batman psyche more so than any other film has done prior. You really understand and see how Bruce is the way he is. He's almost completely alone. He's soft-spoken and withdrawn. He's skinnier than most would expect a Batman to be. But what all this adds up to is a true perspective of the Dark Knight. This is not the Batman who has been stalking the night for years, whose body has become a tank of sheer goddamn steel. This is a Batman who doesn't know what he's doing. He's angry and bitter and sad. And the only way he's learned to deal with his pain is by arming himself with his own fear and spreading that same fear and darkness that has consumed his own life through the Gotham streets every night. The soundtrack is simply absolutely amazing. Not only does it match the mood of the film perfectly, with Nirvana's grunge aesthetic and negative atmospheric undertones, but it also quite honestly gave us the greatest Batman theme of all time. Like, I genuinely had tears in my eyes when I saw this in theaters for sheer how goddamn perfect it truly was. Somehow, Michael Giacchino was able to create the perfect Batman theme, capturing his essence in a simple yet effective deep grunge ballad that slowly builds to an edge. A perfect soundtrack for this type of film. Now, I've heard many opinions and views on this film, including some things along the lines of, how is this even a superhero movie? Batman doesn't even tell any jokes. And, it's a long and boring and there was no action and too much talking. Now, if you're someone who holds these opinions, then that's your right, but I'm sorry to tell you, you don't have the first clue of what a hero is or what a good movie is, for that matter. A hero is not someone who tells shitty one-liner jokes every 30 seconds and jumps around to CGI explosions and overplayed 80s songs. Although, you would be forgiven in mistaking this considering the absolute dumpster fire of superhero films in the last 10 years. A hero is someone anyone can look up to, from the poorest street kids to the most privileged, highest members of society. Someone who puts the needs and wants of themselves behind them to further the greater good. Now, not all heroes are perfect. They're not supposed to be. Watching a hero develop is what it's all about. Learning they're people just like us with flaws and misgivings helps us sympathize and emulate them, making the smallest, most insignificant child believe maybe they could be something greater. Maybe they could be a hero too. At the end of the film, this is exactly what Batman learns. He can't be a tool of revenge and violence. He has to be something greater than himself, to be a symbol of hope and courage that you can take control of your own life and work to be better and spread love and compassion to the world around you. These are the messages and themes we should be putting out into the world, that we should be teaching the younger generation and the older generation. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you've been through, what your race or what your sex is. None of it matters. What matters is love. What matters is compassion for people around you. What matters is truly perceiving the world in the way it was meant to be. And this film understands all of that perfectly. Anyone can be a hero. Batman is a phenomenal film, truly tackling themes of self-discovery, sacrifice, and morality. Following the confines of your own heart, the self-destructive path of vengeance, and the healing of hope and compassion. That no matter how lost in the darkness you are, there is a path forward. It's up to you to decide what the path is. Our past don't make us who we are, but with what we do, that defines us. The Batman gives us hope. Thank you everybody for listening and tuning in. This has been the first episode of Vacated Theatre, The Batman Hope.